Welcome to another episode of Boom or Bust, the draft show. I'm Max Chadwick alongside PJ Clark and Tate Sigworth. We're now welcome on another very special guest, Jon Ledyard, who covers the NFL draft and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for Pewter Report. Our good friend Mike Renner from Pro Football Focus challenged you, Jon, to our draft trivia game. Jon, thanks so much for coming on, though, man.
Absolutely, guys. I did absolutely no homework for this draft trivia game. So if I get something right, it's going to be completely off memory, like not at all something I studied right beforehand, just so you know. And I'll probably get most wrong as a result of that lack of preparation.
I
Hey,
love it.
at least
So
he's honest.
It happens.
yeah, perfect. Yeah. So Mike and Austin both scored 3 out of 5. So we're gonna play that draft trivia game at the end of the video. But first, we're gonna ask him some questions first. So you cover the Bucs, who I think maybe the most divisive team in the NFL. Some people say they're gonna win the Super Bowl this year with Brady and Gronk and all those weapons on offense. While some people think Brady and Gronk, they're washed up. They're gonna go sub 500. Where do you fall on this year's Bucs team?
Well, I think that people on the side of them winning the Super Bowl clearly have a point, and acting like they don't just because the Bucs aren't usually a good team seems kind of silly to me. I mean, I think that the Bucs clearly on paper are an outstanding football team, and it's not like they just signed a bunch of people to be a super team this year. Like they have drafted well and they've acquired a lot of talent over the years. And a lot of those guys are the kind of the pivotal pieces to this team. Certainly getting a quarterback like Brady was huge for moving them in the right direction. They definitely needed that. There's no doubt about that. But at the same time, I just think this is a team that it was already very, very talented and should have been a playoff team last year. And the only reason they weren't was because of kicking, which still could be an issue this year, and quarterback play. And quarterback play, I don't think is going to be an issue at all this year. I think it's going to be a positive for them. And so those are the only things holding them back. I don't think this is kind of like a bad football team that suddenly signed a bunch of people and now they're good in the offseason. It'll get billed that way if they're good, but that's simply not the case. They already had a ton of talent here that could have won football games, and that'll be what sets them apart from past super teams like the Browns from last year, or you even go back to something like the Eagles back in the day when they had the super team. Like that'll set apart this Bucs team, because when we look back on it, we should be looking at it for what was already there before this offseason, rather than the fact that, oh, Brady, Gronk, Fournette, McCoy, like other than Brady, those guys will have some impact, but it's not going to be difference making in the level that a lot of the guys that were already on the roster would have been.
So you just mentioned Leonard Fournette signed last night by the Bucs, the latest in an offseason full of big splashes. What are your early thoughts? It's very early. He hasn't even practiced yet, and how he fits in with Ronald Jones, Shady, and even Keyshawn Vaughn, who they drafted in the 3rd round this year.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Leonard Fournette was not have been a player that I would have seen as a clear fit with the Bucs. To me, what they're missing, what you'd hope that they'd find more of in their offense, if they're looking for that at the running back position, would be receiving ability and or pass protection ability. And so a combination of those two things, well, that's really not Fournette's forte. I mean, you could say he caught 76 passes last year, but he was so unimpactful in those 76 catches that it makes you concerned with giving him any type of a volume role as a receiver. He's probably not going to live up to it. It's probably just not a very good idea. And so when you take a guy that averaged 6.8 yards per catch, I think of all running backs with 20 targets or more, he was 47th out of 61 last year. So just not impactful in the passing game. 76 catches. There's your sample size. You don't need to see more. It's not like, oh, what if this or what if that? You don't need to see that. Like the guy has had ample opportunity to prove that he's a good receiving back, and he's just not. He's not a creator in space. He's not a tackle breaker. He just has limitations in that way. So as long as the Bucs don't expect him to be something than what he is, which is he's not the value of the 4th overall pick. He's just not. He hasn't been throughout his career. It's not going to happen all of a sudden. But that doesn't mean he can't be helpful to a team still. It's just about recognizing him in the proper role. If they're bringing him in to be the bell cow back and they're planning on giving him 200, 250 carries, that's a bad strategy. Not only because passing the ball is better than running the ball, but because Fournette is not the kind of guy you want to give tons of opportunities to in your offense. He can be effective in a role. That's what he is. He's a role player. From everything we've heard from the Bucs, that's how they intend to use him. Ronald Jones is the starter. He's the feature guy until he proves otherwise. I fully believe Arians when he says that. Doesn't mean that Ronald Jones won't fall on his face week 1. We've seen him do that before, and then all of a sudden Bruce gets hasty, and probably not week 1 because Fournette's not going to have that much time to learn everything. But, soon he would throw Fournette in there. So that doesn't mean that. But I think right now they fully intend to move forward with Fournette as a role player, which is the role that he should be in. You just hope that they don't transition him out of that role because it could be a detriment to the better players on the offense.
So we just touched on the running backs. Another position room that has some questions around it is the tight end room. Does Gronk have anything left in the tank coming out of retirement? And can someone free O.J. Howard?
Yeah, I mean, I really think O.J. Howard, I know we've heard this before maybe, and everybody thought maybe in Arians' offense the first year that he'd take off. But I think the biggest thing for O.J. Howard was in 2018, he really looked like a guy that was about to be one of the best players at his position. I mean, averaging over 16.5 yards per catch. He was dominant down the field in like 10 games or something like that year. He had almost 600 yards receiving, I think. I mean, he was just on his way to posting numbers that would have put him in the top tier group of tight ends in the league. And I think he would have started to get recognition of that. It would have been an explosive type of year. Then he got hurt and he missed the last handful of games of the year. And that impacted the way people viewed him. They weren't as, by the time that 2018 season ended, they kind of forgotten about what he'd done and they weren't as excited about him going into 2019. He didn't help himself in 2019, to be fair. He didn't come to camp as ready as I think he should have. I don't think that he knew the offense as well as he should have. And I also think that then once he did know it, he got hurt midway through the year. And so he missed a few games, and that was an issue as well. And then late in the season, we saw things pick back up for him. He started playing well again. He made some big plays down the field in the passing game. The offense is perfect for O.J. Howard. It's perfect. I mean, Bruce Arians is a vertical passing game coordinator. I mean, before anything else, that's what he's always been. And people say, oh, he's ignored the tight end position. No, he just didn't have any in Arizona. They didn't use tight ends. They didn't have them. And so he used other players. He loves running the seams and middle of the field routes and all that kind of stuff. That's his offense. He just, if it's a tight end that does it, great. If it's not, if it's a wide receiver like Fitzgerald and Godwin, he'll put him in the slot and they'll do tight end stuff. They'll block and they'll run those routes. So that's the only distinction with Arians, just whether he's had good ones or not. If he has good tight ends, back to Pittsburgh when he had Heath Miller, he used Heath Miller all the time. And so I think OJ is going to get utilized. I think he's going to have a great, what other people would see as a breakout year. I really think that was 2018, except that he got hurt halfway through it. I think he'll have that type of a year. Gronk still has something left in the tank for sure. I don't think it's necessarily about Gronk's decline as it is. They're going to want to limit Gronk in his usage is my guess. I think they'll use him a lot as a blocker. They'll use him as a receiver, but they have so many other options. I don't think that it's not that Gronk can't do it. I just think it's that his role in their offense is going to be a lot as a blocker, and then they're going to use him as a receiver, but he's not going to be a featured player in the offense to the extent that he was in New England. And it's because of the other pieces, not because of Gronk, but also because I think they want to ensure that he's fresh and he's healthy and he's ready to go at the end of the season and able to help them at the end of the season. They have a lot of good players at tight end, and they have 2 stars at wide receiver. There just isn't a big reason to use him more than that. New England toward the end, I mean, he was their best player. You go back to even when Brandon Cooks last year there, Gronk was their best player. So they had to use him a ton. They had to isolate him on the backside 3-by-1 and get him in the right looks. And he was the feature part of their offense. In Tampa Bay, it's not going to be the case. So I think he'll eat when they need him to, but in terms of production, but I don't think they're going to be reliant on him to achieve kind of what he did in New England. So I think somewhere around 500 yards, 40 some catches is probably in the realm of possibility, would be my guess for Gronk. And I think OJ will lead them in tight end snaps. I think he'll be ahead of Gronk in production too, targets and receptions and yards and things like that. Gronk might get him in touchdowns. We'll see that area of the field. I think the Bucs are going to be really hard to defend with all their tight ends. So it should be fun to see how it shakes out.
Yeah, PJ's a notable OJ Howard stan, so he loves hearing
me too.
That made me very happy. That made me very, very happy.
Me too, PJ. I'm not ready to give up yet. Too much promise for me to give up.
Yes, that makes 2 of us.
John, you're happy right now. We're gonna move on from the Bucs and maybe to a subject that you're not so happy about. The NFL Top 100 came out this summer, and you on Twitter, along with everyone else seemingly, were not very happy with it. What do you think were some of the most egregious mistakes that they made on that list?
Oh man, I'm trying to even remember the list now. I mean, I wouldn't even say, I just think it's hilarious every year. The list is kind of laughable. I know Levante David was low, and that's a Buck. So obviously I'm going to say that maybe, although I'm not like a Bucs fan or anything. I just watched him and I know that he's an elite football player. They had some other, Josh Allen at 75 was just ridiculous. Even if you think Allen's good, even if you're like one of these guys that, believes Allen can be the best quarterback in that class or can be the franchise quarterback for the Bills. I mean, just predicting him that high just seems, he's not there yet. Clearly he's ahead of quarterbacks that weren't even on the list. That was a ridiculous one. I mean, Jimmy Garoppolo was really high, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
I don't even, I thought I was a Jimmy Garoppolo fan until I saw what the players thought of him. And I was just like, that was complete. I mean, Todd Gurley was in the 40s, right? I mean, Todd Gurley's not even, I wouldn't even consider him in the top 200 right now. I mean, you watched him play last year. He's done. I mean, he's done. I mean, he doesn't, his knees are so, I mean, he doesn't even look like he wants contact right now. So yeah, I think that those were probably some of the biggest things that stood out to me at that time.
We go back and forth on kind of scouting tropes that we hate. We have a lot like generational talent, a lot of usage there. What is the most annoying thing that you see come up in scouting reports that you are not a fan of?
Man, there's honestly so much vernacular that I can't stand. I can't even read traditional scouting reports. I mean, it's funny when you first start out in the field, I read them all the time. It was just kind of like, and I wrote like that because I read it. So, I mean, it was just kind of like an automatic thing for me to read it and then write like that and not really think beyond those terms. And then as I started to write more and I started to study more and learn more about the game and how to look at players, I started to kind of realize that putting things into my own terms was when I had the best understanding of what a player could actually do. It wasn't until I could do that I realized that, okay, now I feel like I really understand this player and I can really analyze this player and offer something of value on how this player might fit in the NFL level. So I think that as much as people can get away from that if they're starting out, I mean, get away from it and force yourself to try and describe a player in your own terms without falling back on a ton of vernacular that is utilized a lot in the scouting world. Having said that, I would say that, I mean, you've mentioned a couple of them there, but one that always gets me is when they consider, like, when they call player kid from Iowa State or the kid from Oregon. It's like, this is literally your job. Your livelihood depends on breaking down every aspect of this individual's life, where they spend their Friday nights, their Saturday nights, who they're dating, all this stuff. And you're telling me you cannot remember his name when you have to talk about it? It's just ridiculous. Like, it's just kind of like that old, like, my job's so important. I don't even, I've done this so many times. I've seen so many players, they all just run together and, nobody's important enough to stand out in my mind. And it's football, man. Like, that's what we cover. And so, like, acting like arrogant about it or like you've, achieved something that would put you in a position where you couldn't have to acknowledge another person's name just gets me every time. It's like, once in a while I could see if it were like some obscure guy late in the draft, you forgot his name. I think one time on a radio show, I got stuck and I couldn't remember the guy's name. And I said that, and I kicked myself after. It was like I don't think he got drafted, whoever it was. But I mean, we're talking about the Clemson kid to talk about Trevor Lawrence. It's ridiculous. Like, do we really think that you don't remember his name? Just say his name. So that's one of the things that, I mean, there's so many things. I actually did an article a long time ago it was like a list of scouting cliches I'll have to send you guys. And it was kind of like what they actually mean. I think you guys might get a kick out of it, but it was pretty funny. I think it's somewhere on the Draft Network now, or maybe on a site that went down, but I should have the raw file still on my computer. But it was like a list of all this scouting vernacular, and then kind of like an ironic kind of translation of all those things. So it is funny to pick it apart.
So before we get into the 2021 draft, we have one singular 2020 question. Okay, so in your positional rankings, you had a first-round grade on now Jets safety Ashton Davis. Okay. What did you like about him at Cal, and what can Jets fans, including PJ, look forward to seeing?
I think Ashton Davis is just everything you look for in a single high safety, he kind of has already. I think as long as the one thing is mental part of playing single high, you want to be able to process things at a high rate. And I think that he improved so much in that last year, but still going to the NFL, the passing schemes are way more complicated. They're way more vertical. They challenge safeties a lot more, deep safeties especially. So there will be a learning curve there for sure. But I think that he has range. He has ball skills, great athlete, great size. He's physical. For a guy who was a track star, that part doesn't always come naturally for people. So it was great to see. He would lower the boom on some people over the middle of the field. I think that a heady player who loves the game. I mean, talking to his DB's coach, who's now Miami's defensive backs coach, I believe, but his DB's coach at Cal was Gerald Alexander, and he would just talk about how much time Ashton Davis spent in the film room working on his game. He was just kind of a walk on everything. He walked on track and he made it. And then as he's about to, achieve great things in track, he's like, you know what? I really want to, if I do this, I can't play football and I want to play football. So he walks on to football and he earns his way there and he gets drafted in the 3rd round. And so, I just think that's the kind of dude that he is. So, you're getting a great type of player and mentally somebody who can get it done. Physically and athletically, he's at the top of the game too. And his flashes of ball skills were great. And he has that cornerback background too, a little bit. So you have man coverage skills as well. So I just thought he had all the traits that you want in a single eye free safety. That's great. And if he doesn't make it, I thought it would probably be because the game was a little bit too fast for him and he couldn't make the next step from the neck up. And because he was such a smart player that put so much time into the game, it seemed like a safe bet to me. If that was the only way I could see him failing, it seemed like a safe bet to me to kind of bet on him as high as I had him. I think 12 or 13 or something like that. And so, yeah, that's what I did. Yeah.
Yeah, you had him top 15. I think number 13, I think, is where you had Ashton Davis. So,
yeah,
John, we're going to move on to 2021 right now. We love to argue about the 2021 quarterbacks, especially the order of the consensus top 3 in the kid from Clemson, the kid from Ohio State, and the kid from North Dakota State as well. What's your opinion of Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, and Trey Lance, and where they rank for you?
Honestly, I've done so little work on this upcoming class at this point. Like I've done some, seeing a lot of them live. I watch a ton of players live and I watch a ton of them with a critical eye live, but I still hate to go all in on somebody, but without really having studied them. So I'll refrain from doing that. I do think Trevor Lawrence is the most talented of the group, but last year he definitely played worse than the other two. Obviously, level competition for Trey Lance you can talk about certainly. But he just wasn't very good last year for most of the year after being unbelievable as a freshman. And so it's kind of this season I just really think is a big one for Trevor Lawrence. I say that for how he develops as a quarterback, not whether he'll be the first pick or not, because he's going to be the first pick, especially if the Big Ten doesn't end up playing or Justin Fields doesn't end up playing. I just don't think – I don't know how you could draft Fields at this point over Lawrence, even though I did have it in my mock draft at the time when I assumed that there would be football, to kind of shake things up. I think it is a conversation, but I just don't know how you can do it unless Lawrence falls on his face this year, because Fields, just his offense is just so simplistic compared to Lawrence's and compared to what he'll see in the NFL. We saw with Dwayne Haskins a year ago. Dwayne Haskins couldn't even run an NFL huddle when he was getting to the league the first time. Now he may end up being a good quarterback, but the learning curve is just so different because the offense they come from Ohio State is so much simpler in the passing game. So that's where I'd have questions with Justin Fields. I think physically and athletically, he does a lot of really good things. And then I've seen Trey Lance here and there, but I haven't studied him close enough to have a really strong sense of his game. Daniel Jeremiah is somebody that I respect as a colleague a lot, and I look up to his opinions a lot. And he put Trey Lance first out of his quarterback rankings, which was surprising. And so there's definitely something there. I think he didn't throw any interceptions last year, I believe. And so, there's a lot to like about him, I think. But this season would have, it's huge. They're a run-oriented team, and he didn't face great competition, and there just still are a lot of question marks. Not a lot of things he did in the passing game were very difficult, and it's the same conversation with Newman too, as he's going to sit out the year now. It's just kind of I don't know how much stock you can put in them. It's going to be weird drafts, so those guys still may go high anyway because of the importance of the position and the upside, but it's hard to put a lot of stock into what they did last year. Certainly doesn't put them in a conversation with some of the top quarterbacks we've seen go in the past few drafts. So we'll have to see how different this draft and the way that teams evaluate this draft treats a class of quarterbacks that will be way more unproven than we've seen in past years.
So you just mentioned Jamie Newman, Georgia's quarterback, opted out yesterday. A lot of other guys, Jamar Chase, Micah Parsons, and then those are the bigger Chase Parsons locks for the top 10. But lower tier guys, Rashad Bateman, Sage Surratt. Are you surprised at the amount of talent that has opted out? And do you think this might become a trend for some higher level juniors?
I'm actually surprised it hasn't been more, to be honest. With COVID going on, I just did not think that we would see many of these guys opt out. Now, of course, I don't think there are a lot of guys in the Big Ten, if they play late, I think they're just kind of waiting. But if they play late, or even if they say they're going to play in October and everything, COVID is still a bad situation then, or a bad enough situation to pose a risk to them. I think we'll end up seeing more opt-outs there. It was surprising to me that the LSU guys like Shelvin and Chase waited as long as they did when they knew the SEC was going to play. Like, they had more opportunity to jump out before this. And so that was a little bit surprising to me. But I still think that, more players haven't done it. I mean, it's, there's clearly a risk, and we've heard enough, I think, to know that, although it's extremely hard to get good nonpartisan information to make decisions, which is probably one of the reasons why some of those guys' decisions were delayed. But for some of those guys, they don't have a lot to prove by going and playing. I mean, if I were Trevor Lawrence, would I be playing? I mean, you speak to his commitment to the team, and I appreciate that, and the college experience, and I'm sure he loves and enjoys that. And, there's certainly value in that. I'm not saying he's wrong to play, but from a draft perspective, from a business perspective, there's no real reason for him to play. Like, teams are going to not care that much about last year's bad tape, and they're going to draft him number 1 overall. Now, if he has a second bad year, then that's when questions will arise and they could get away from him. So he actually really can probably only do himself damage from a business perspective, and certainly from a health perspective. But he loves to play, and I can't take that away from him. It's a risk everybody's kind of got to assess for themselves, I think, at this point. But I haven't been surprised, no, and I think we'll end up seeing more as hopefully, as we get closer to the college football season, those guys do it sooner rather than later. But I think that for the teams, for the Pac-12 and for the Big Ten, they may be in situations where we might see their decisions come later if those leagues decide to start up later.
Let's move on to a lighter subject right now, John. I saw on Twitter that you're a big fan of the Umbrella Academy on Netflix. I'm also a huge fan of it. Tate and PJ, though, haven't seen it yet. Can you make a pitch to them to watch the show?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of a show connoisseur in a lot of ways. Like, I love watching shows, and sometimes it's why I work, but I just enjoy consuming media, and so and then kind of analyzing it and thinking about it. And so for me, it was kind of like, I don't think the acting is anything to write home about in the Umbrella Academy, which, is whatever. It depends on the type of show, whether that's super important or not. And this is just kind of like a fun, lively show that I don't think it matters that much for. It's not supposed to be super intense. But the dialogue is great. The character development is really good. The action, it's funny. It's very unique. I enjoy some superhero stuff. I didn't grow up really into it very much, but some of the newer stuff that they do with it, some of the self-depreciating stuff that they do with it, I enjoy it a lot. So it has some of that in it too. It's just unique, and the plot is fascinating. I love time travel plots and stuff like that. I just think thinking outside the box like that is indicative of a pretty creative group of people that put together a show. So I love some of that stuff too. And they can do so much with it. It gets me intrigued about the future seasons as to what all they can do with it. So if you love falling into a story and kind of getting hooked on everything like that, and it makes you want, when can I watch the next episode, or when's the next season? I think it's definitely a show that does that.
All right. I mean, that's a compelling pitch.
Good sell. That's a
better than I could. Yeah.
We got some things to think about, PJ. So moving on, we always like to ask our guests these questions because back in the spring, we did our own combine. We ran through a couple drills. We did the broad jump, the 40, the 3-cone, and then we did a longest throw. So you can yuck the ball as far as they can. Varying results, as you can probably imagine. Lowest 40 time we had was 5.1. Highest was 6.2. Although we maybe had to go back and look at the tape. And then our longest throw.
5.1 was me.
Oh yeah. It was definitely Max.
Yeah, totally Max.
Longest throw, we still give Max a lot of crap for it because he picked up a football and decided to record himself throwing it 19 yards. That is Max's longest throw.
You published it?
NFL size, and it was deflated. I couldn't throw it that far.
That's out there.
He couldn't.
Tom Brady can do it. You can do it.
It's on the internet. It's on the internet. We've seen Max only throw the ball 19 yards. The longest in that was 47. So, John, if you had to do those drills, what do you think your times would be, your results would be? How would you fare?
So the football throw, probably not much better than Max because I'm a big weightlifter, and my shoulder is kind of shot. At 30 years old, my shoulder is kind of shot, and my elbow too. So it doesn't even feel great to throw the ball. So I mean, it would be further than that. No offense, Max, but it wouldn't be much further. 40, I've never been very fast. I do run though consistently. I don't know whether that would even matter though, because I'm just not that fast. I mean, I would be in the 5s. I would be slower than 5'1", I bet. I just guessing. I don't know. 5'2", maybe 5. I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not very fast, but that would be an interesting one to test. I should probably do that at some point. Who was 5'1"?
That was me.
Okay, Tate.
I think we can get it better. I think we can get it better. Coming out of quarantine, hadn't exercised in month and a half.
Real quick, John, because Mike said that I look the most unathletic out of the three of us. When you look at the three of us, just purely judge a book by its cover, what rank the three in terms of athletic ability, please?
Oh man, this is tough. Well, I can't. I've only seen your heads and okay.
Well, that was the part that Mike just nailed it. I mean, he was only seeing our heads. He just ranked us, and we're like, okay.
Was that right? Did Mike get it right?
Yeah, Mike did get it right.
Well, I mean, I know Tate ran the fastest, so then I'm probably going to be put in.
Really Max is miffed, so pick between the two of us. This is a long-standing argument.
How tall are you, PJ?
I'm 6'1".
I'm like
what do you got, Max?
I'm like 5'10".
Okay, I'm gonna go with PJ.
You gotta go with the height.
You want four eyes? You going with four eyes?
Listen, man, you threw a football 19 yards and published it like it was a big deal.
Oh my
Let's
God.
Go.
I hate this so much. Okay. All right, John, last question. So we did some research. We found out that the guy who's the preseason QB1 for the draft hasn't actually been the first quarterback taken since at least 2015 with Jameis Winston, maybe even 2012 with Andrew Luck. However, I'm irrationally confident in Trevor Lawrence to break that streak. So we have a bet with our followers, subscribers, and the guys we're interviewing that if Trevor Lawrence is not the first quarterback taken, I will drink a smoothie with ingredients of everyone's choosing. So far, Austin Gale from PFF, he has absinthe for me. Mike Renner has Malort's, which is a horrible brand of Chicago liquor. Would you like to contribute another ingredient? And it does not have to be alcohol, by the way. I do not want to.
It can be alcohol. Do not be scared off by that.
Well, how old are you, Max?
I'm 21, so I'm
okay.
I can drink. I just don't want to die.
I didn't want to give you advice, that would come back to bite me. Look at this guy telling minors to drink,
Completely in the clear on that.
Yeah, don't worry about that. Yeah.
But no, I got to think of something. I'm not picking alcohol. If they've already got something in there, I'm picking something totally disgusting. That would. What is this? If Trevor Lawrence doesn't go number 1 overall.
You know what? I'll say that actually. Instead of QB1, screw it. I'll go number 1 overall. Let's do
even better. I like that.
Okay, so he has first QB and number 1 overall pick.
Yes. So it's probably not going to happen. But just in case.
Well, I mean, now that he puts the number, the QB1, I would say, that's he's going to be the QB1.
Mm-hmm.
But now he has to be the first overall player too. I mean,
yeah, it could be Panay. Panay could be the pick, like the Bengals have it or something.
Yeah. I'm gonna say two eggs. You just have to crack them and put them in there.
I like that. I like that. That's a good answer.
Fair.
I'm wondering texture wise what that'll do with it and how that'll
strong answer.
Act with the alcohol. I don't know, but
yeah, probably not great. I probably wouldn't be too great with the alcohol.
I mean, Rocky did it.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. All right, now it's time for draft trivia. So how this works, there's 5 questions. If you get 3 out of 5 right, John, we'll rename our Twitter account to Boom or Bust, the Jon Ledyard fan account, for a week and send you some merch when we drop it in 2025, basically. We haven't done it yet. So far, Austin and Mike from Pro Football Focus both got 3 out of 5. Do you think you could beat them?
Probably not. Those guys are such nerds. They look at data all day. I don't know. I'm gonna say that I probably won't beat them. If they only got 3 out of 5, they probably spend more time on it than me. But I'll go for it.
All right. So we tailored a couple to your.
Are these the same questions they got? By the way, are these the same?
No.
Different.
We tailor to the different guests. So here's one for you. Pretty simple. Name the last 5 Buccaneers first round picks.
In order?
No,
you don't have to get them in order.
Just the last 5.
Okay. All right. Tristan Wirfs, counting this year, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Devin White, Vita Vea. Hang on. I'm trying to remember the order of them now. Mike Evans 2014, Jameis Winston 2015. Then what do I have? I have 17, 18, and 19 I named.
You named 20,
you named
19,
20,
18,
19,
so
and
17
18.
and
Yes,
16.
you need 17 and 16.
So 17. Oh, Vito. Okay. And I named Jameis. Okay, that was 15. Mike Evans was 14. And then let me see. Hang on. I'm not looking it up, by the way. Tom Smith. They're probably not even with the team anymore, are they?
One of them is, one of them isn't.
Mm-hmm.
Hang on, I can get this for sure. OJ Howard.
J. Howard.
He was 17, right?
He was 17, so the 16
Yeah.
guy
16.
now.
So now 16, and this guy's definitely not with the team anymore, and he was big cheeks.
Yes.
Yes, he was.
Definitely not good.
Oh man, this is why I blocked it out of my mind.
He was very hyped coming out.
Yes.
How high they pick him?
I think it was top 10, right?
Yes. It was
Look it
either
up.
top 10 or right outside.
What position is he?
Ooh, that
well,
might be
I don't
too
know.
much.
I don't know
Might
if we
be
can
too
do that.
much here.
Don't give me
11th
too much.
overall.
I don't know if we can do
11th
that.
overall.
11th overall. Okay.
11th overall. Oh man, why can't I think who this was?
He's apparently still in the league, which is a take. I didn't even know that.
So he's like not even a guy that should be in the league right now. That's how bad he was.
I wouldn't say so.
I don't know about that, but yeah.
Oh man, I'm gonna kick myself so much for not thinking of this.
It's a tough one. I'll give you that.
Because he's like not even on the radar anymore. How much did he
No.
did he play it for the Bucs? Like
He did.
Did he actually get on the field?
He
Oh,
did.
yeah.
He
Yeah.
definitely did.
Oh, Vernon Hargraves. I'm so
Yes.
Vernon Hargraves.
There it is.
Vernon
There it
Hargraves.
is.
What a pull. What a pull.
He is in the league, but he started last year half the games for the Bucs. That's why I was thinking of trying to think more obscure. And he was so bad. I mean, I literally watched last year's tape and I was like, this might be one of the worst football players I've ever seen. I mean, he was so horrible.
I loved him coming out of Florida, too. I thought he was going to be like the next Darrelle Revis coming out.
I did too. That was when I was first starting out, but it was, yeah. I mean, I literally watched him and we asked the coaches all the time, why did the pass defense get so much better over the second half of the season? They don't say it, but it's easily because he got cut. That's definitely the biggest reason. Okay. Got it. I thought I was going to have to mess that one up.
One for one.
Nice pull.
That was good.
You guys
Took
can
some
cut
thinking.
out and edit down those parts where I was thinking. So you make me look like I was a little more.
Yeah. We'll have you just rat them off real quick.
That's right.
It's all in the magic of editing. So question 2. The Buccaneers have selected 2 quarterbacks, number 1 overall. Can you name the 2?
Yeah. Oh, I'm pretty sure I can. Well, I don't know if it was number 1 overall. So actually,
I can give you a hint on. I can give you 2 hints. Yeah.
Jameis.
Yeah.
And then
season one. I can give you the year on the second guy if you'd like.
Well, if I guess wrong, is that it, or do I get to keep guessing until? Because I know that
one guess.
One guess.
Do you want the year? Do you want the year then?
It was Doug Williams, wasn't it?
It's not Doug.
Is that your final answer?
So he was not the first overall pick.
No.
Oh man, I might. They drafted Doug Williams. They drafted Steve Young, but I don't remember if Steve Young was the first overall pick or not. And then let me try and think. Josh Freeman definitely was not.
I missed Josh Freeman.
I don't think Trent Dilfer was, but it was definitely one of those guys.
I need a final answer. Lock it in.
Trent Dilfer.
No.
That is incorrect. It was Vinny Testaverde in 1987.
Oh, Vinny, that's right. He was drafted by them.
All right, so 1 for 2. 1 for 2.
Yeah,
Okay.
you're still pretty good. All right.
I still knew a lot of quarterbacks that the Bucs drafted. Over their
Yeah,
history.
that was impressive.
Yeah, that was good.
For somebody who's only covered them a few months.
So 3 schools are tied for having the most number 1 overall picks with 5. Can you name one of those 3 schools?
Most overall number 1 picks, did you say?
Yeah, number 1 overall. Yeah. There's 3 schools that have 5 that have the most, and that's the most.
Do I just get one?
Just one of them. I just need one out of the 3.
I just get one guess to go for 3. Or do I get 3 guesses to get one?
No, one guess for
one guess to name
Just
one of the 3
gotta go
schools.
1 for 3.
All right. Oh man. I'm like gonna try to think about like the past drafts now to like think through. I mean, there's obviously no way I'll think of like 5 people, but I mean, Oklahoma.
Yes, that's one of them.
Oklahoma is
That
on
was
the
one of
list.
them. We'll
It's a
save the
big
other
recent
two
one.
for other guests too. But that was good. That was a good poll.
I was gonna try and guess the other 2, but I don't want to ruin it for other guests.
Oh, you can try. Actually, no one. Go ahead. You want to
Yeah,
try?
go
Okay.
ahead. You want to take a stab?
Okay. This is tough. I mean, no, that's not a good because they haven't had a lot of quarterbacks.
I would think one of these schools think early 2000s, and then another one kind of
Yes.
like an older powerhouse that's been around for a long time.
Right. So is Miami one of them?
No,
Miami's
good
not.
guess.
that was a good guess though.
I was gonna say, they haven't really had that many good quarterbacks. Early 2000s, you said. I don't know. I'm not gonna be able to get this, but yeah, I can't think of. I mean, LSU.
No,
They haven't had enough. Probably. Who are the other 2? Well, I don't want you to say if you don't want to.
no, we can tell you. It's Notre Dame and USC.
Oh, Notre Dame. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. USC. Yeah, I would not have guessed that. But I guess if you think back to early 2000s, you're right. They had all the quarterbacks go high.
Yep.
Although I think I'm not sure how many were first overall picks. But.
Palmer and Liner.
Palmer.
Or Liner didn't go first.
Liner did
I was
not
gonna
go
say,
1-1.
right.
I can't think of
Palmer went 1-1,
Palmer did.
but that was
OJ.
it. For
OJ was one of them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
All right, so we what are we 1 for 3 now?
No, you
Yeah,
got
one-
Oklahoma.
2.
We're
I
talking
got
about
that one.
Oklahoma.
Oh,
We
I got that.
two.
You got an Oklahoma. 2 for 3.
All right, so now taking it back to your NFL Top 100, your personal revised version after the terrible one came out. Which Buccaneers players made your list?
There were 6 of them, by the way.
There are 6 of them.
You talking about the group?
Buccaneers.
The group top
list.
100.
Yeah.
Yes, the group list that you guys had.
This will be bad if I don't get this. Tom Brady.
Yep.
Mike Evans.
Yep.
Chris Godwin.
Yep.
Rob Gronkowski.
Yep.
Ali Marpet.
Yep.
And Levante David.
Wow.
That was
Like that.
just rattled
that.
them all off.
Well, what was my list? So if I didn't get that one, I would just leave the show. I wouldn't even take the last 2
This
questions.
is, by the way, this is for the record right now.
this is for the
Nobody
record.
has gotten 4 out of 5. You already got 3 out of 5. Nobody's ever gotten 4 out of 5.
This is
yet.
the last question, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
last
this is
question.
it.
You're 3 for 4 right
Do or
now.
die.
3 for 4 to go 4 out of 4. Honestly, I think this is probably the one you're going to get most likely at all 5. So you got to name the 7 members of the Umbrella Academy.
Nothing
Oh,
Tate and I can do. You two can.
okay. Ben,
Mhm.
Claus. I'm really bad with names of people in shows, to be honest. Ben, Claus, Allison, Luther, Diego. How many did I name? 5?
5 right now.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, what's her face's name is so hard to say. 5 is the
Yep, that's 6.
yeah. How do you say her name? Is it like it's like Amaranth or something like that? Oh, I know it begins with an A.
Nope, we're giving no hints.
I know it begins with an A. I just don't remember how to say it. It's like
So you want me to go over what you said so far?
I know who it is. Like I picture
Okay.
it. Like I know it's the girl from Juno, but I don't remember.
It is the girl from
It
Juno.
is the girl from
Yeah.
Juno.
I can't remember what her name is in the show. It's like it's something with an
This
A,
would be
but
brutal.
I can even see it, but I just don't know what are the letters. It's like it's not a normal name, right?
No.
No, it's not an American name.
Yeah.
Not a. This would be tough.
This would be a tough.
Man. This is what it's gonna come down to.
I'm gonna put a timer on a couple seconds here.
I'm surprised you got Ben though. That was a good
Yeah,
one.
I mean the other ones are easy. It's literally her name. Like I can't remember it because it's like it's just like an unusual name.
She's like the main character.
I don't know. It's kind of in the first season, but they probably say her name the least. I feel like she's in it the least too. It does begin with an A though. And the second letter is an M, right?
I cannot confirm nor deny.
It's not going to tell me anything. I don't remember. What her name is.
This is for the record, John. We can't just give it
I know. I know, but I don't know it. I don't know her name.
It was Vanya.
Vanya of the V.
Yeah.
Vanya. Yeah. That's not bad.
I mean, I can't criticize you. You got 6 or 7. I've never seen the show before, so I mean, that was a pretty good run.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
I should have gotten it, but I am like, it's like a laughing. I always to joke around with my wife, like how I cannot remember anybody in the show's name. Like we can watch a show it can be like Lost, 6 seasons, 120 episodes. I'm like the dude. I'm like trying to the doctor dude. Like I don't know why it just doesn't register with me.
Listen, man, you got 3 out of 5 right, and actually had a chance for 4 out of 5, which is better than the nerds at PFF did, though. So that's pretty good. Do you want to call out anyone to come on and try to beat your score?
Oh yeah, definitely. My old podcast partner Trevor Sycamore, a good buddy of mine, he will come on the show. He will not get 3 out of 5. He won't unless he tries to cheat. He's on his phone all the time, and so you've got to watch him.
2 or 1 out of 5?
I'm gonna say 2 because you'll probably give him. You gave me a softball with the top 100. That was easy. You give him a softball like that, but I don't think 2 out of 5. And ask him if he can do 40 push-ups without stopping. I'm on the record as saying he cannot, and he has not given me video evidence that he can do it yet.
All right, we'll double down on that.
Noted on that.
Double down on that for you.
John, thanks so much for coming on, man. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, guys. Thanks so much for having me. It means a lot.
Of course. Check him out on Twitter at Ledyard NFL Draft. So for PJ Clark, Tate Sigworth, and Jon Ledyard, I'm Max Chadwick. Have a great day.